My name is George Farah. I'm a member here at Nags Head Church, and I'd like to tell you just a few of the highlights of a trip I took to Helene, Honduras on a mission trip this past January. When we got there were certain jobs to do. For example, Chris and Josh and myself, we kind of went off to do some medical things as well as some repair, maintenance things on the building. And where some of these guys may not have had the experience to cut out a roof vent and replace it, I knew how, and with these fellas' young, vigor muscles, they helped us get the job done. You know, Josh's experience in the medical field and mine, we were able to help Deirdre, the nurse there at the mission, made several house calls, and we treated several people right there in the clinic. Of God. There's an area in Helene they call the pond. What they call a pond, you and I would call a swamp. We would call literally a cesspool. I mean, it's pitiful. This poor section of town, they build their houses on sticks over top of the water for a specific purpose, and that is to get rid of the sewage, because they have no sewage disposal. My first visit with Deirdre, the nurse, was out to the pond to visit this little lady who is 85 years old. So we go in, and I was hesitant, you know. There's a little shack, it's sitting on sticks, it's got a you know, makeshift walls with boards probably found on the beach or something. Just a couple of rooms inside. There's cracks in the floor a half-inch wide. You can see the water underneath, you know. And my first thought when I was walking up that little plank over this swamp was, you know, how many bugs are in here? Where are the snakes? And, you know, I mean, I'm thinking about disease and all that type of thing, right? But I got to tell you, when that little lady came out and she says to me, "Have you been to Helene before?" I said, "This is my first time." She says, "Don't we have a gorgeous place to live?" And that shook me up. And I realized that the things we have don't mean anything. Material things, she had absolutely nothing. But yet she had everything in the world because she had Jesus in her heart. And I confess you are Lord. But little Zach, this little guy is probably, I'm bad with kids' ages, but I want to say he's probably about 8 years old or so. The kids play around the yard, and it's hot down there, you know, and they work up a sweat and they perspire and they get thirsty. Well, they're not allowed to go inside the mission room, okay, the building itself, because that's you know, it would just be overrun with kids all the time. But there, where the water is, they'll come to the door, they'll come to the screen, and they'll say, "May I have a cup of water?" There were two dispensers of water. One is warm room temperature water, good drinking water, mind you. The reverse osmosis, the best they got on the island. And then there was a water cooler. Little Zach came to the door, and he says, George, he says, "Can I have a cup of water?" I said, "Sure you can, Zach." And there wasn't anybody really watching, you know. So I walked over there and I got him a cup of water out of the cold water. He took a sip of that water and held it with both hands, right? He took a sip of that water and he says, "Oh, thank you, Mr. George." You know, when he realized it was cool. Man, that blessed me, you know. I realized right then that Jesus was there. You know, he was standing there. He came to me through that little boy. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones because he is my disciple, I tell you the truth, he will certainly not lose his reward. I wrote this thing that you and Pastor Rick call a book. You know, it was a few notes that I jotted down about the trip, and I titled it "What I Did on My Winter Vacation." My wife recently did a mission trip with some folks from the hospital. They went to Ecuador, and she came back and she says, "You know, that's the only vacation I ever want to go on anymore." I went to Helene to try to be a blessing to others. And the blessing came back to me. And sorry. It flows all directions, you know. God doesn't just flow blessings one way. When you're in the midst of it, and you're in the middle of it, and you're in His presence, it flows everywhere, you know. And His grace comes to you from His heart. And all I can say is, He'll put His heart into yours and everybody else in that field. It's amazing. You go to Helene to build a fence for a schoolyard, and you come back with all these things. Yeah, we built the fence, and we could leave there and we could take a picture of it and say, here's the fence we built. But we came back with a whole lot more, and we left a whole lot more in Helene. And quite frankly, I'm hoping we can do it again real soon.